India's bullet train to growth. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Japanese Premier Shinzo Abe today launched India's most ambitious infrastructure project ever. A bullet train connecting Ahmedabad with India's financial capital Mumbai. Dubbed as Japan's gift to India, the 1.2 lakh crore rupee project will involve over 500 kilometers of rail link and drastically cut down travel time from 7 hours to just 2. Japan will fund more than 80% of the project cost as a soft loan and will also transfer its time-tested technology for the mega project.
Indeed, Prime Minister Modi says that the bullet trains are not just about reduced travel time. The showcase project will create 45,000 new jobs, direct and indirect, even as it gives a big boost to the country's economy. No wonder the government is in a hurry to sell this project. The deadline has now been advanced to 2022 to coincide with the 75th anniversary of India's independence. But there are many who question the massive investment, stating that the priority should be on fixing the basic rail infrastructure, getting safety right. They've also raised doubts about the financial viability of this project. But for now, no one is complaining because India's entry into the Bullet Train Club is a momentous occasion. That's the big debate topic right here on the India Development Debate this evening. I'm Supriya Srinath, and with me in Mumbai is my colleague Sandeep Gurumurthy. The big story right now.
Make way. The bullet train is coming. Call it a gift from Japan. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe on Thursday launched India's most ambitious infrastructure project ever. The high-speed rail corridor connecting Ahmedabad with Mumbai.
और आज जापान ने दिखा दिया है कि वो भारत का कैसा मजबूत दोस्त है। मुंबई अहमदाबाद के बीच भारत का पहला हाई स्पीड रेल प्रोजेक्ट दोनों देशों के बीच मजबूत होते संबंधों का भी एक उम्दा उदाहरण है, एक प्रतीक है।
The 1.2 lakh crore rupee project is set to change the face of rail travel in India, cutting the travel time between the two financial hubs to just 2 hours. Japan is virtually funding the entire project with an 88,000 crore rupee soft loan. Of the over 500 kilometers railway link, more than 20 kilometers will be through tunnels, including undersea travel. The mammoth project will create more than 45,000 new jobs.
मैं एक बार फिर बोलना चाहूँगा, अब जापान और भारत के बीच का सहयोग केवल द्विपक्षीय नहीं रहा, यह हिंद प्रशांत महासागर के नियम पर आधारित विश्व व्यवस्था का नेतृत्व भी करता है और यह वास्तव में एक विशेष सामरिक और वैश्विक भागीदारी मतलब स्पेशल स्ट्रेटेजिक एंड ग्लोबल पार्टनरशिप में विकसित हुआ है।
Clearly, the Modi government is in a hurry.
Ambitious target has been set by Prime Minister Narendra Modi for completion of this project from Ahmedabad to financial capital of Mumbai, which will be travelling around 350 kilometers and are thereby converting the whole journey in just 2 hours instead of the 7 hours that currently it takes. And 2022 is the target set, a stiff target set by Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the completion of the project because he wants this project operationalized in the 75th year of Indian independence.
Bullet train will have a multiplier effect on the Indian economy, and PM Modi says the project is not just about a fast travel option between the two cities.
बुलेट ट्रेन परियोजना एक ऐसा प्रोजेक्ट है जो तेज गति, तेज प्रगति और उसके साथ तेज टेक्नोलॉजी के माध्यम से तेज परिणाम भी लाने वाला है।
There are people who question the huge investment, saying the focus should be on fixing the basic railway infrastructure. There are also doubts about the financial viability and the travel cost. But for now, it's celebration time as India joins the Bullet Train League. Pooja Sarkar with Vijay Ganeshan Iyer, 18 Now, Mumbai.
And joining us on the India Development Debate this evening, right here at 9 p.m, we've got G.V. Narasimha Rao representing the BJP, Sanjay Jha from the Congress, Gurucharan Das, author and commentator, Raghu Dayal, former CMD Concord, and D. Raghunandan, Delhi Science Forum. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for being with us. I'm going to begin with you, Mr. Gurucharan Das. And you know, Bullet Train was long awaited, and this really seems to be a lot of euphoria around it. And I'm going to quote I'm tempted to quote a World Bank statement that says that optimism emerges when it's overstimulated by self-interest. And in this case, it seems like it's one of those cases. My real question to you is the bullet train a symbol of rising India?
Well, you know, I used to be skeptical about this project. In fact, I was part of the Railway Restructuring Committee, and I didn't feel that enthusiastic about it then. But now I've changed my mind. And the reason is I've seen the same criticism that are coming on this came about for the Delhi Metro. And I've realized that Delhi Metro has been a catalyst for metros across the country. And so I personally think that this is a project that's coming really, it's not either or. Railways have to fix themselves, but doing this has a great advantage in itself. It has an advantage which is not just symbolic, it's almost free of cost because the 50-year soft loan is at 0.1%, 85% to be paid by the Japanese, and 15-year moratorium on costs. So it's really, but more than that, I'll tell you, the reason that we will get the benefits of this only if we restructure the railways.
Right.
You know, railways is a rotten organization.
Gurshan Das,
full of very good people.
Sure.
Full of very good people.
Right, Gurshan Das, I'm just going to interrupt you because you've made a very, very important
point
point there.
Finish?
You've made a very important point there. Let me just get opening comments from everyone because I get your point on the need to restructure railways, but I just want to get a quick opening comment from everyone before I sort of throw it open to specifics that you are making, because we are in complete agreement with the larger point you're making. Mr. Raghunandan, let me come to you first, which is, you know, there is still a section of people, and I know you believe that India is not ready for bullet trains and that we've sort of not got the priority rights. You know, the larger question is that why are we seeing it as an elitist form of development? What is wrong in India looking at the bullet train as a symbolic measure of rising India? It is a big statement of India taking a big step towards development. Mr. Raghunandan.
Well, if you're looking at it as a symbol, it's a very expensive symbol. And if you really want to see it as a signal of what India intends to do, then I think the intention would have been better expressed in a non-symbolic form and in a more substantial form. I have reservations on the project on grounds of viability, on grounds of replicability, because this largesse that Japan has extended to India for this project is not likely to be seen if we try and replicate it somewhere else. So I don't see this as being a particularly replicable project, only in which case we could have spoken of a transformation. And lastly, I do think, I agree with Gursharan Das that it's not an either-or proposition, but I do think it's a very important proposition that we are not yet catering to 95% of railway passengers, and all our attention seems to be focused on a very small set of passengers of the railways.
That's a valid argument, but I'm wondering if it can ever be binary like that. I'm just going to get Mr. Raghu Dayal to counter that statement. And, you know, Mr. D. Raghunandan says that it's a very expensive symbolism if there is indeed one. What's your view on this? Because I know there are these arguments being made of muddled priorities, but there is also this argument that if India is not going to have a bullet train in 2017, then when on earth are we going to have one?
Well, these are questions which are very natural. These questions have been raised everywhere. In Japan, they kept discussing about the introduction of high-speed rail for over 15 years. It happened exactly the same way in France before they went in for this project. In China, it has been, in spite of the fact that it is the way it is organized, the tremendous amount of resistance from academics, from various segments of society. In a situation in which we are placed in India, in terms of amidst poverty, amidst the shortages of basic transport, people naturally ask that if you are going in for this sort of elitist project, why should you not be able to give connectivity to remote areas? Why should you not be able to increase capacity on existing for conventional train services, etc., etc.? But we basically miss one point, that we are not talking merely of speed. We are talking in terms of looking ahead, that as Mr. Gurcharan Das said just now, that is not a question of and or, it has to be both. Now, what happened? In Japan, they were able to change the entire cultural background, in the change of the mindset. It became a catalytic agent, not only for developing mobility systems, not only for creating connectivity, but the entire economic sector comes into under its impact. And same thing is going to happen in India. It is an inflection point. Once you begin, it becomes a catalytic agent to drive not only the mobility part, as I said. You have to view it in the context of climate change, environment challenges, and overall requirement of the economy as it is developing and aspiring.
All right. Fair enough, which is why we're calling it bullet train for growth. You know, we're not calling this we're not questioning some of the fundamental premise. We're calling it bullet train for growth. Okay, let me throw it open to the politicians on the panel. Sanjay Jha, I'm going to start off with you because I'm getting mixed signals from the Congress party. I would have thought that the Congress would sort of cheer this this move because your party had a role to play. We can't lose sight of the fact that Dr. Manmohan Singh did have a role to play in us getting here. So I would have thought that the Congress party would be happy that we moved forward and this day has happened and we are sort of now talking of a realistic timeline of achieving this ambitious project. Yet, we are hearing comments coming in from various people questioning the logic of this move, questioning priorities, trying to link it to the unfortunate derailments that have happened over the last few months. What is the Congress party's position on this?
Well, first and foremost, let me tell you, Sandeep, I think Mr. Modi's government suffers from what I would call as the Marie Antoinette complex. If you can't give them bread, please go ahead and eat cake. I mean, this is basically the mindset of this current government. Let me give you an example. You have had recently a railway minister who has been sacked from his portfolio because of the escalating rise in the number of accidents, casualties and derailments. That itself is a manifestation of the fact that your existing infrastructure is not able to service a transport medium which, by the way, caters to India. Railways is frankly the lifeline of India. Now, let me give you one example. There are 19,000 trains that run every day, 19,000 trains, okay? And what are we doing here for the next 35 minutes or an hour, whatever the length of your program? We're going to talk about one train. I think that to me is a glaring, I would say, inequality that we need to address.
Okay.
This is a country where 23 million passengers travel every day. How many are going to travel on a bullet train? 1 minute, just one last point and then we can debate it. Mr. Gurcharan Das waxed eloquent on, cost of funding for the project. And I hope, Supriya, both of you will bring this up on this program. Was the bid for the bullet train done internationally or was it just given to Japan? Point number one, because it's common sense, even a most elementary graduate will tell you that there should be a competitive bidding process to ensure that you get exactly the best cost. Number two, it's not coming to you for free. I mean, if anybody is telling us that, they are being disingenuous and distorting the truth. There is a commitment to buy locomotives, coaches, and a lot of import equipment from Japan. Japan is not giving India on this on a charity, because we can sit in a jhula and eat some dhokla in Ahmedabad. I think there's a fundamental issue. This is a commercial proposition for Japan. Did India do its homework? That's a point I would like to raise because you're a commercial and a business channel.
Okay. Okay, let's keep the dhoklas and the khandvis aside on the show and just talk about the bullet trains and rail infrastructure in this country. GVL Narasimha Rao, while I would want you to counter what the Congress party is saying, and some of that has truth in it, the rail infrastructure is in a pathetic shape. But of course, this money can't be put there. Do you have your priorities right is the question that the opposition is asking you. But the other big question, I think, and I want you to take this question head on. There are no free lunches. Yes, Japan is financing 81% of of this project. It's almost a free lunch. But there aren't any free lunches actually, because Japan has a negative deposit rate. It's best it parks its money somewhere where it's going to eventually get some return. So Japan is doing the right thing, looking at its own economy, its own fiscal position. So let's not shroud away or run away from the fact that this isn't a free lunch at all.
No, Supriya, I think for us certainly, I think we borrow money from various multilateral agencies. When we borrow money, we borrow at a cost. And even if you borrow internally, you have to borrow money at a cost. So this is coming to you literally without any interest, which itself is a huge windfall gain for the government, for the country. You see, look at the Congress party's arguments. I think they have not invested in the railways when they were in power. For several decades, Indian railways suffered for want of investment in railway infrastructure. We have invested nearly 1.3 lakh crores last year.
Factually wrong.
And in the next 2 to 3, in the next 4 years, World Bank is investing additional. No, these are all facts. I think you have invested not a penny. And now you want to really comment.
Sanjay, let GVL comment. Let GVL complete his point, and then we'll come to Sanjay.
Indian Railways was flourishing under you.
The reality is, complete, and then we'll come to you. GVL, carry on. Yes.
Ask him to keep quiet.
Yes, please continue, GVL.
I will. Yeah. You see, 1.21 lakh crores is the money that was spent last year in railway infrastructure. And in the next 2 to 3 years, another 3 lakh crores is being spent by the government. And apart from this, you have a 5 lakh crore investment coming by way of a loan from World Bank. So certainly there is a massive infusion of capital, massive investments in infrastructure, rail infrastructure, that is happening for the first time in this country. You never spent money. You only borrowed, you allowed railways to really almost go to the extent of a complete breakdown.
All right.
Okay. Now coming to the bullet train.
Yes.
It's not a question of this or that. We have to strengthen our traditional railway network, which we are doing, unlike any government in post-independent India. And secondly, we also have this money coming as a soft loan. I think this is what New India is aspiring for. This is what people of young India, you might want to really sound like a Jola party and want to claim that you represent the poor, but even the average Indian, even the middle class Indian today aspires for world class infrastructure.
GVL point noted. GVL point noted. Sanjay, before I come to you, I just want to throw one question to Gurcharan Das. He's raising his hand, but Gurcharan Das, Supriya made the point about there being no free lunches, and that is a fact. But yet, just look at the modalities of this loan. It's a soft loan of 88,000 crore rupees at an interest rate of 0.1%, payment to be done over a period of 50 years, and there is obviously a grace period of 15 years. I mean, while there is a reason why Japan is doing it, because interest rates, there's negative interest rates on deposit, yet it is compelling, and this money wouldn't be coming for funding, a railway safety project or something else. Japan has an interest in financing this project, so this money, this capital is available to finance a particular project. You take it and you finance it, and you find other ways to finance other projects, whether it's railway safety, railway maintenance, all of that needs to be done. It's not an either or, but you can't sort of mix these two issues and say that don't do a bullet train because it's coming at a cost. Gurcharan Das?
I know, I completely agree with you. It's not either or. If you didn't take this project, you wouldn't have this money. So it's not a question of putting this money somewhere else. The real problem I have, frankly, is with the railways. That we will get the full benefit of this project only if we can diffuse the technology through the rest of the system. And the present structure of the railways it doesn't give me the confidence that they will be able to do so. I was part of a railway restructuring committee, which basically said the following things. One, abolish the railway ministry. The minister should sit as a part of the transport ministry. So with which there should be no and the railways should be bifurcated into two parts. A part which runs the infrastructure, the stations, the lines, and the tracks, and signaling and so on. And the second thing is the people who run the trains. And those people who run the trains, those trains should compete with private sector trains. And there should be far greater emphasis on freight. And what we have now is Japan is also committed to this freight corridor that we are working on. So there should be direct synergy. The real benefit of this high speed is going to come through diffusion.
Right.
The way that diffusion is taking place with the metro in other cities. And so let me just finish here. The key disappointment I have with this government is that we suggested you start by appointing a regulator which will take political decisions out of politics, fair decisions, the decisions on safety, etc., would be in the hands of a neutral regulator, and you must hive off. Today, railways is like a government within a government. Hive off all the schools, the hospitals, the police. They have 1.3 million people. You need just 1/3 of those people. And today, the people's cost of the railways, 2/3 of our revenues are for paying salaries and pensions. Now, that's the disaster. And unless we fix that disaster, you know, we are not going to get the full benefit of this wonderful project.
I understand that. I don't think we can, I agree with your point. We can't race ahead with a bullet train when we've got so many things to fix, but I don't think it's binary either. But you know, Sanjay, I'm going to just point you out to the direction that Sandeep actually asked that question with Mr. Gurucharan Das. You know, I don't think any of us can deny that railway safety is paramount, should be fixed. I don't think any of us can deny that social infrastructure needs more money, education, better healthcare. But you know what? This money Japan is willing to give at the rate at which it's giving over a 50-year loan for this project alone. This money can't be parked somewhere else. So what is this opposition on grounds of?
Supriya, let me tell you, money can be parked where you need it the most. It's an elementary economic law that the allocation of resources is going to be a function of either the market or what the government believes is the priority area. Now, let me tell you, and I'm glad you asked that question, the UPA, by the way, has established this great equation with Japan. And where did we actually focus on? We got it on the Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor. The same industrial corridor which I think Mr. Modi tried to hijack as Make in India. So that is the real issue that I want to address. I'm very glad, because that's a very relevant question, is you've got to look at where are your priorities. And I'll give you two examples of that. You're talking about, I live in Mumbai, okay? And Ahmedabad from here, I have, by the way, many trains. There is great road transport. You can fly a 1-hour flight for 4,000 to 5,000 rupees on a given day. Now, the question that anybody will ask, I think that's a very, very simple question. Mr. Modi is talking about a bullet train which is going to connect Ahmedabad and Mumbai, and it's a 2-hour journey. We had to think about making a transformational impact. Then I'll tell you what we need to do. There are 40% of railway bridges which are over 100 years old, by the way. How many people are aware that 15,000 people die on railway crossings? Now, yes, it is a historical challenge. Every government, including Mr. Vajpayee's, for the way, let me tell Mr. Rao, since he criticizes the UPA every time, Mr. Vajpayee's government was also in the past, all right? I don't know what they did. This is a challenge. This is a challenge for any government. Now, the truth is, this is what we are talking about today. You could have channelized a huge international funding, sovereign support, when you needed it as a priority.
Okay,
that's
fair. Before I throw it open to my experts, I will come to you, Jeevan Narsanaud. A quick point I want to make, on unmanned level crossings. The government is committed to sort of doing away with unmanned level crossings by 2019. So there is work in the direction. And as far as the safety record of this government is concerned, on this very channel and on this very show, we did a debate questioning the safety record as far as railways is concerned. And Mr. Gurucharan Das, we did a debate on the report that you presented as far as railway reforms are concerned. We agreed with most most of the recommendations made by that committee which you and Vivek Debra were a part of. So we know we are for all of those things. It's just that today's debate is on bullet train, so I don't want that to the agenda of the debate to be hijacked. But Jeevan Narasimha Rao, quickly you want to retort to the point that Sanjay Jha made before we throw it back to our experts on the panel.
No, I think it's so, the Congress party possibly fears that bullet train is going to become a symbol of the infrastructural giant leap that this country is taking under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. I think
it's going to
when
be
you
a
have such
Waterloo,
a
my friend.
narrow-minded approach to politics, I think people will realize that you are a negative force in politics. The Congress party survived in power for so long by keeping India poor, by perpetuating poverty, by keeping large sections of India illiterate, and by resorting to politics of vote bank politics and caste politics. I think this is why people of India actually had such a negative view of the Congress party. This is how Congress became a party of 44 seats from a party that won 400 odd seats, because you are seen as a negative force as far as
shouldn't you stop him
and development are concerned.
Shouldn't you stop him because he's making political statements?
As a party in government,
GVL
I think I'm quite happy.
You're going in another direction.
No.
GVL, please listen to me. Don't take this. Don't make this a partisan debate. I request both GVL Narasimha Rao and Sanjay Jha to not make this a partisan debate. This is a debate about bullet trains. Let's speak on factual factors. No, I just think we are making this partisan once and for all. Let's not do that, please. Both of you, please hold your grounds. Let's talk about the bullet train. Criticize it, praise it, but let's not get into the winnability and the Congress get into what Modi is doing wrong all the time. Let's not do that. Both Sanjay Jha and GVL Narasimha Rao, just please hold your horses. Let's keep this a factual debate, because that's what we intend to do at ET.
That is what is governing
where
their
we'll all
views
yell,
on bullet
scream,
train.
shout at the same time. Just hold your thoughts there. I get your point. I will come to both of you and ask and urge you to make a factual point there. Just hold your thoughts there. Raghu Dayal, I'm going to come to you on this. The multiplier effect. You know, I'm just going to keep the politics out of the bullet train for a minute and ask you this question. Enough has been written and said about this multiplier effect that the bullet train will have in terms of creating jobs along the track line, you know, having a impact on employment in that region, very dense areas that this is going to go through. Can that be lost sight of at all?
You see, this is a fundamental question. Actually, as you said very correctly, this tends to get politicized unnecessarily and we lose the focus on main things. Now, first of all, putting in perspective, the accidents, as a layman I understand, is number of accidents and overall impact of railway accidents has not gone up in comparison with the past. Number two, the last 3 decades particularly have been decades of disaster when politics has ruled the railways, and railways unfortunately have been allowed to deteriorate in service, etc. It's not a question of not investing. Railways were not allowed to earn the basic requirement of the freight charges and fare charges were totally politicized. But coming back to the point that you have very correctly raised, high-speed rail, let us not look at it merely in terms of mobility. High-speed rail is an economic activity which creates transport requirement by itself. It connects areas. Now, within a radius of about 500 kilometers, it enables Tier 2, Tier 3 cities also to look ahead. It enables people to be able to live far away from cities like Bombay, for instance, and even stay in Surat and get into Bombay within 1 hour of journey. It has happened all over. Number two, Bombay and Ahmedabad has been selected not on political basis, but purely on the basis of the traffic density, the capacity for people to pay in terms of the projected demand of traffic, and that is why there were 7 identified corridors for high-speed rail. This is the most, in terms of specific detailed studies, it has been proved to be the most important in terms of the requirement, because even to begin with, the train will run 35 trains each day, carrying almost about 36 to 40,000 passengers, going up to more than 100,000. Now, this is This is to be viewed in the terms of climate change, environment requirement, in terms of economic things, in terms of giving fillip to the overall development in the area, not only at Ahmedabad, not only in Bombay, but tier 2, 3. It has happened all over.
Okay, fair enough. You've laid down the multiplier effect that this could bring about. Let me get in another view as well. You know, we've got all sides covered. Let me get in Mr. Raghunandan's view as well. And the point that he was making, and I want to specifically talk about, you know, obviously everyone understands the impact that it will have on sort of manufacturing, jobs being created, and, you know, various figures doing around 45,000 direct and indirect jobs. But the urban mobility, the impact on urban mobility, the fact that people from Surat can get to Bandra here in Mumbai in an hour, and we've seen this happen, you know, in Japan, in China, and a lot of other countries as well, because the high-speed rail network not just pulls in traffic from air and road, but also creates traffic of its own in many ways, and at least that's been the global experience. Mr. Raghunandan, how would you counter that point that it could have a significant impact on urban mobility, it could be a significant way of arresting some amount of urban migration that's happening today? It could decongest cities like Mumbai. Those are very, very structural benefits of this exercise.
Yeah. See, I think we are comparing apples and oranges. If you think of the Tokyo-Osaka belt, this belt goes through a region which caters to, if you look on either side of the track, roughly 50% of the population of Japan. The Mumbai-Ahmedabad corridor is a short corridor and caters to perhaps high-paying passengers who are not daily commuters who are congesting the city of Mumbai or Ahmedabad, who would require to travel daily. Those people certainly cannot afford the bullet train. I have serious questions about, which we seem to be losing track of under the glare of glamour, which the bullet train project seems to have cast a spell over this country. I would still ask the question about the viability of this project. What I understand, that the detailed project report has projected something like a 4,500 rupee tariff for this journey, which I think compared to even air travel would be prohibitive. What is to say that we will soon not turn around and say, let's subsidize the bullet train passengers, because otherwise it will not be viable. And I think this goes to the question of replicability of this project. Can we really project that? We have talked about so far 6 to 7 such corridors. I don't think we can think of too many corridors with the kind of density of travel that we are talking about between Mumbai and Ahmedabad. Right. And if this project has to act as a catalyst, which people seem to think it will, which can then trigger transfer of technology, absorption of technology, multiplier effect on jobs, etc., it needs to be replicated. And I'm not sure that there are too many other places where this can be replicated. International experience suggests that there are only a few corridors which meet the criteria to justify a bullet train, and the glamour point of, if India doesn't do this now, when are we going to do this and reach the list of advanced countries? Please remember, the United States still does not have a bullet train for many of the reasons that I have been talking about.
Fair point. That's a very valid argument that you're putting on the table. I'm going to get a quick reaction from Gurucharan Das. And Mr. Das, you know, while everybody speaks about urbanization, I'm tempted to use a quote from Mr. Raghunandan. The glare of glamour, has that kind of, you know, shrouded some of the concerns around the bullet train? How would you respond to some of the points that he made, that even in Japan, the whole Osaka to Tokyo line caters to almost 50% of Japanese population, and he's absolutely right. US doesn't still have a bullet train. Is that because of terrain so much? Is that because of viability? I have a large part of my show reserved to address viability and the replicability of the model, but I first want you to respond to the points that Mr. Raghunandan made on the whole urbanization bit. Is the upside being exaggerated?
You know, I think Mr. Raghunandan has made very good points. But, you know, in some ways, the same points were made when cell phones first came, and they priced it at 18 rupees because 18 rupees a minute, because they felt that these were toys of the rich. The same criticism came about computers when Rajiv Gandhi was pushing it, and a lot of the Congress party opposed the computers. And same question when the Golden Quadrilateral was being double laned, and the Delhi Metro. The point here is that sometimes supply creates its own demand, and what we need in India is for 1,000 flowers to bloom. There's no shortage of money in the world for doing the projects. We are absolutely right that while we do bullet train, we've got to fix the regular railways. Every line on the railways should be double lined. The railways should be emphasizing freight. You need autonomy for the railways. Railways should be run like a business, not like a government department. And it must have a proper regulator. So there's a big agenda. And if we're going, we've had some of the worst, until Mr. Prabhu came, we've had some of the worst ministers of railways in the past.
Right.
So now I think, let's see, if we want to modernize the railways, there's nothing wrong with using this as a catalyst. But for God's sakes, we have to fix the railways first. We have to give autonomy to the people who run the railways, depoliticize the railways, and get rid of all the 90% of the activity that the railway does is non-railway activity. Hospitals, schools, police, all those things.
Fair enough. Gurchan Das, I couldn't agree more with you, though I'm sure on depoliticizing railways, I'm sure both GVL Narasimha Rao and Sanjay Jha will agree that that's not something that's feasible, that's not something that's going to happen, but probably those are the kind of game-changing reforms we need to look at as far as railways is concerned. I'm coming to you, GVL Narasimha Rao. The points or the benefits of this being exaggerated. I think Mr. Raghunandan has raised some valid points on the table. We may be calling it budget train for growth, but we want to debate whether it is a budget train for growth, and he's raised some specific substantive points, and I want you, GVL Narasimha Rao, to counter that before I go to Sanjay Jha, and then we need to take a break. GVL.
Yes, Sandeep, I think it's a fallacy when you say that bullet train has to necessarily compete with air travel. I think you see in large parts of Europe, I think people travel long distances by train. 600, 700 between countries, between national capitals, people travel by train, and most often I found the train travel to be more expensive than the air travel, but still people prefer. So there is a segment, there is an audience, there is a niche segment which prefers to travel by train, even if it means a little spending more than what they would spend on air travel. So it's a complete misnomer to say that people only compare fares and travel. I can tell you the kind of experience that you get when you travel on Eurorail, that when you travel on Amtrak in the US. I think that's a world of difference. Here, for high-class Indian railways, we actually end up paying almost the same price, but you don't experience that kind of travel for a sure. For us, it's a very important mass transportation medium, and that must get certainly a massive thrust. But at the same time, the bullet train or high-speed rail is a separate segment all by itself, and India, there is a large market out there which will certainly take to this this new transportation opportunity, and there should be no questions. People will pay what it takes. Even today you find because there is not enough supply, you end up paying almost on par with the air travel on a number of trains, and you travel for 24 hours sometimes.
Okay. GVL Narasimha Rao, you made your point, and look, I promise both you gentlemen, both you and Sanjay Jha, that we'll keep this debate civil and we'll give both of you an opportunity. Sanjay Jha, this is your turn to quickly retort to whatever GVL Narasimha Rao says, because I have to take a very quick breather. Go ahead.
Sure, Supriya, I'll keep it short. I think Mr. Raghunandan has really nailed this entire debate, honestly. I mean, that's a point we've been making repeatedly. I have personally, last year I went between Tokyo to Osaka, and it actually covers virtually the significant length of Japan. And, the number of stops are very few, by the way. And from what I'm already hearing and reading in the press, there are going to be 12 stops between Ahmedabad and Mumbai. It clearly tells you there is a political spin there. But the larger point, there are 19,000 kilometers of railway tracks in this country that need to be modernized. I don't think we are doing anything at all about it. The truth is, and the other accidents that happened last month, several people died, families were destroyed. And what was the reason found? There was not enough people to manage the signals and track maintenance. And you have at the moment 1.5 lakh people who have not been hired over the last 3 years. I mean, clearly, whether we like it or not, there is got to be a priority. And I think the last point is fundamental. If this is not a scalable project, then why are we doing it between Ahmedabad and Bombay? The two prosperous cities, two prosperous states. If this is not marketing razzmatazz, what is?
Okay, this is marketing razzmatazz, not a scalable project. I'm going to take a very quick break on that note. When we come back, we will raise the more substantive issue of viability of this project. It's something that we need to talk about. While in principle, it's tough to debate this. Muddled priorities is a bit of a question mark, we'd reckon. But viability is where it becomes a bit of a challenge. Is this going to be viable in the long run? Will we make money out of it? Or could this end up as another white elephant? That's what we're going to debate in just 2 minutes from now. Stay with us right here on the India Development Debate. You're with ET Now, and this is the only show on Indian television that debates issues of India's development. Our agenda is India's development and nothing else. Tonight, we're debating a bullet train for growth. We discussed the upside of having a bullet train, the impact it could have on the economy as a whole. Now we're going to talk about the viability of this project, because we don't want this to end up as another white elephant. Mr. Raghu, I'm going to come to you now and place some facts in front of our panel this evening. 90% of India's train passengers travel in non-upper class, bogies. So therefore, 90% of the traffic is not for even AC travel. Number one. Number two is, for this project to be viable, research suggests that 15 million passengers need to travel a year and pay a fare of around 3,000 rupees per passenger. Now, that's about as much as an air ticket costs between Mumbai and Ahmedabad. Many days and weeks, it costs just 2,000 rupees. How is this project going to be viable, Mr. Raghudayal?
Yes, you see, first of all, let us look at it. We are looking at the financial cost and the economic cost. Now, a high-speed rail has to take into account, first of all, the environment cost. High-speed rail has proved to be consuming or emitting not more than 1/8 of the carbon dioxide that is emitted by roads, and not more than 1/5 of carbon dioxide that is emitted by air. Now, that apart, everywhere these questions were raised. The price of the ticket for high-speed rail in Japan is about twice the price of conventional rail. In China, it is as much as 3 times. Now, basic primary studies which have been done for Ahmedabad-Bombay route is that the fare structure will be approximately about little over AC first travel. Now, when we are talking in terms of the band of travel, first of all, high-speed rail cannot possibly be justified over distances of about 800 kilometers or less than about 200 kilometers. Thumb rule is that the viable system has to be between 200 and 800. Number two, the total cost of time, overall cost, last mile connectivity, first mile connectivity, etc., taken into account, there is a price for time that you pay. Thirdly, in case of the distance of 500 kilometers, if you pay a little as much as the air travel, it becomes viable in the overall runs. It has proved the high-speed rail allowed Japan and French railway systems to cut out their losses
Right.
And it enabled the system to earn money for the railway system. So it's not going to be per se unviable, etc., but you have to be selective and to choose the correct path and correct corridors.
Mr. Raghunandan, I also want you to come into this whole viability argument, but I'm also going to slip in a question as far as cost escalation is concerned. It was supposed to be at 98,000 crore rupees. It's already gone to 1.1 lakh crore rupees. And there are plethora of instances that I can quote on cost escalation around the world. The Japanese bullet train itself was supposed to be a project of 200 billion. It went up to 400 billion. The 1570 million euro Paris-Brussels went up to 3300 million. Eurotunnel itself was supposed to be a project of just 5,000 million pounds. It went to 9,000 million pounds. So, I can quote instances after instances on cost escalation. But at the same time, I will also question on viability. I mean, one argument is that it connects city center to city center, so is a more viable bit. The other is, if it's going to take me less travel time via air, why should I be taking this if I'm going to be paying as much? How do you weigh both those arguments?
I think there's 3 points I'd like to make broadly. The first is that many of the issues that have been raised comparing the Mumbai-Ahmedabad corridor with similar corridors in Europe or the Tokyo-Osaka corridor, one factor we are forgetting is that all these countries are high-income countries. So the load on the pocket of the bullet train passenger is lighter in those countries compared to ours. And I think this is reflected in the fact that international experience suggests that other than Istanbul, which has a high-speed rail connecting on the two sides of the Bosphorus between Asia and Europe, there is no developing country which has yet had a bullet train, I think precisely because of cost and viability reasons and what the passenger can pay. I think this is very important for us to think about. Only China probably comes across as another developing country, if you can still call it that, which has adopted bullet trains on such a large scale. But in China, to the best of my knowledge, they have actually reduced tariffs on the bullet trains 10 times since when it started, to a stage today where it is below viability levels. They are reconciled to the bullet trains not being viable. There's a huge internal debt that the Chinese railways have incurred, and when that will finally get paid back is anybody's guess. But then India is not a cash-rich country like China is. So I think we are going on an uphill trajectory, choosing this one corridor and then thinking that this will then somehow get replicated elsewhere. And I think Mr. Raghu Dayal made the correct point. We have to choose the corridors where this will work.
Right.
Even in the United States, when they are thinking about bullet trains, they have only identified 2 corridors.
Right.
One down the East Coast from Philadelphia to Washington, the other from Los Angeles to San Francisco. That's it. So how many such corridors are we going to have in India which are going to have anywhere near the kind of passenger loads that Mumbai, Ahmedabad are going to have?
Okay. Comment on that, Gurcharan Das, before I throw it back to the two politicians on the debate. One is on the viability of it, because, the last thing we'd want is this turning into another white elephant project, the government subsidizing the fares to make it to an extent where more people travel by the rail and in turn making the project in turn viable. Legacy of running railways suggests that that is what politicians could end up doing irrespective of which government is in power. And that's the last thing we should do for this project, shouldn't we?
Well, I would just point to the experience around the world that Mr. Raghunandan has made excellent points. But the fact of the matter is, there were a lot of people I know when they were putting this massive investment on the Golden Quadrilateral. It started in 2002, ended in 2006. And there was a man at the World Bank called Ijaz Ghani. Ijaz Ghani did a study, 5 kilometers around the Golden Quadrilateral, all the way around. And what he showed was that an industrial revolution was created as a result of the Golden Quadrilateral. So I think when we talk about the benefits of these sort of infrastructure projects in a country which is really very starved of infrastructure, and therefore I don't think this is a one-off. It should not be a discussion on the bullet train like the long discussions we had on the Delhi metro. Right. What we should do is to look at the potential. India, what Sanjay Jha talked about was this corridor, the Bombay-Delhi corridor. Now, what we should, the dream should be that we should have a bullet train eventually between Bombay and Delhi, and not just stopping in Ahmedabad. Right. And so I think there needs to be a bit of vision in our discussion here. And frankly, if you did not have this particular train, that money would not be available for something else.
Absolutely.
I can tell you that.
Right.
So it's really for the but can the my question still is, can the railways absorb this, because they have to change their structure to get the full benefits of this, of this invention.
Yeah, Mr. Gurucharan Das, I get the point that you're making. Can the railways really absorb and afford this? But Sanjay Jha, I know I'm going to just take two quick closing comments from both you and Jeevan Narasimha Rao. Urge you to be brief there. You know, the government is obviously doing feasibility study on many other routes, whether it's Delhi, Mumbai, whether it's Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata, to name just a few. As a responsible opposition, would you not want to wait and see the success of this project before dissing that feasibility study, before dissing the entire thing? The proof of the pudding lies in eating. Let's wait for this to develop.
You know, Supriya, I think somebody mentioned about the monetary cost and whether it will be viable or not. You know, one cost we should not ignore is the opportunity cost. And the opportunity cost is the amount of time, resources, manpower, policy making, senior leaders, whether it's going to be from one government or another, that's going to be diverted to this project. Now, you're looking at the bullet train at a time when you have had a derailment in New Delhi this morning. And the operating ratios of the current railways in this country is getting negative, your cash flow negative. So I think fundamentally, unless the railways becomes a bottom line driven entity, to believe that a bullet train will become, you know, like an Apple or an IBM into some unique special purpose vehicle driven by shareholder value is wrong. I mean, end of day, I think the reality, and that's the only thing we are focusing on, and I think we should look at it, is the social cost of anything that results on account of wrong prioritization. You know, let me tell you, if an airplane crashes, it remains a headline for weeks on end. But when train accidents happen, it's a fleeting headline. That's a tragedy of a country where 1% of India owns 60% of its wealth. So I think we'll stick to our argument that our priorities are wrong. Okay. And yes, I agree that it can't be, it should be both, but there is a time and a moment to do that. This is not it.
Okay, this is not the time and the moment. Just to sort of rebut you there, social cost is also the jobs that will get created, 45,000 jobs getting created, the rapid urbanization that this could lead to, the manufacturing boom that it could lead to. That's also social cost, Sanjay. But Jeevan Narasimha Rao, the last word to you, and I'm going to pick it up from the point that Gurucharan Das made, which is, you know, this is great, and, you know, we at ET now support development of this country, and this is in some way symbolic of India's might as a developing country. But the bigger question is, will you let this, you know, become another white elephant? Will you bring down rates to make it, to justify the project costs? Will you sort of, you know, cross subsidize this as well and make it another white elephant? Or will the government sort of be prudent, fiscally prudent, and do all it takes to make this a financially viable project so that it doesn't go down the route of Indian Railways or doesn't go down the route of Air India?
No, I think anyone who knows Prime Minister Mr. Modi's record would vouch for the fact that he has even turned loss-making organizations and enterprises into profit-making corporates. So he understands economics, he understands corporate health better than anyone else. But let me tell you, this Ahmedabad, Mumbai, we are a country where we even, despite the kind of growth that we have seen in infrastructure, we still have a massive shortage of even seats on the trains. I think on this bullet train, let me give you a prediction. This is going to go jam-packed and people will pay, mind this, people will pay better than airfares to travel on this train because of the comfort that it offers, because of the advantages of time, location of the stations as compared to airports which are far outside the city outskirts. So certainly this is going to be a big winner. I think it's just a beginning. You will see this spread to many other parts of the country where such economic viability exists. But this one will be a money winner.
Rao Sahab, like demonetization.
Going to rake in money and will become an example for successful infrastructure enterprises that can really turn in money, rake in money.
Okay. We do hope and keep our fingers crossed that it does become a money spinner and the bullet train will serve that purpose. Completely out of time then. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us. We at ET now believe it's quite clear that bullet train is a sign and symbol for an India that's yearning for world-class infrastructure in 2017. Yet at the same time, there is an India that's frequently derailed and people all across the country still lose their lives at unmanned railway crossings. But we at ET now also believe that development of infrastructure and safety can really never be a binary debate.
Indeed, for India to rise, we obviously need investment in education, in healthcare, in sanitation. Equally important, though, is a bullet train project. Time has come for us to push the pedal. Thank you for being with us on the India Development Debate. Up next is Top 10 at 10. An exclusive interview with the Finance Minister is coming up on ET Now.